Fresno, California, home of the Central Valley. The story of a student athlete who not only takes on challenges on the field, but off it as well. Whether that being staying up all night studying for the big test the next day, or practicing all night for the big game. A common problem for most athletes is they tend to get injured more made by athletes who train alone using their own motivation, which can be a negative environment to be in, which causes athletes to be less aware of the signs they may experience for future injuries.
So when you start having actual pain during the activity, that means it's gone too long. You gotta address it.
In today's society, athletes are taught that more is better, which is an exaggerated statement and the main cause to athletes having harder and longer practices. Athletes who are mainly self-motivated have a higher chance for potential fatigue, which can later result as damage to the player, which has a negative impact on an athlete's performance. If an athlete suffers from any possible burnout, the only treatment to recover is rest. The athlete should most likely stop training or participating for a set period of time. During the time of an athlete's recovery, they can slowly add light intensity exercises to get them back on their feet. Athletes tend to ignore their mental state, but in reality they need more sleep. About 7 to 8 hours of sleep is recommended to people daily, but athletes may need more considering their very strict early and late practices. Not only does a lack of sleep affect athletes negatively, but even unhealthy lifestyles and habitats, which include lack of daily exercise or poor nutrition. If a player is running on coffee or high-calorie foods, then a player's body won't have enough fuel. And if a player isn't taking care of their body the way they should, this can also lead to fatigue, which can cause poor performance from athletes. However, colleges, like Fresno State for instance, have teams in the sports team that regulate and make sure athletes are only intaking the correct nutrition to prevent any negative effect.
Fortunately, we have a sports nutritionist on staff, and that dietitian helps educate our athletes through weekly education sessions. In the off season, we talk every Wednesday or Friday, depending on the time of year, and she does slides and different educational material to help our athletes with that.
People tend to take mental health for granted, with both athletes and students. In today's time, people are taught that they're alone and only have themselves, which teaches athletes that if they are to get injured, they have to figure out themselves, which only leads to bad results long term. I believe that people were more positive and more open about mental health. It can really impact a lot of people's lives and be a very positive change for them. If people were to see each other more as allies and enemies, it would change so much. Just because you don't know the person to the left or right of you, doesn't mean you have to treat them like strangers. When you have a group or a team, that's family right there. Related or not, you're around each other through the good and the bad. And the more welcome people feel can have a really good impact on them mentally. And that's something people should take into consideration.
Video. The process for creating this was a little stressful. I was new to everything. The tools I used was Premiere Pro and Adobe to help with the logo. And the person I interviewed was Dr. Russell. He's a physical therapist, and he was important to it because the whole idea of my video was to show people how to address and treat injuries and from simple as overtraining or what it does to you. So he told me his knowledge and experience he has